Oh, is it good to be back? And Cody Merrow, our producer, with all the bells and whistles today.
Yeah.
Audio courtesy UFC Fight Pass. The German Dragon, Paul Felder. Oh, dude. This is the joke that just keeps on giving. If you don't know the context, watch Paulie's media scrum from Fight Island.
Yeah.
Good to see you, my man. So as many of you know, Paulie and I launched this video podcast, FNA, back in March when COVID-19 reared its ugly head, but we've been idle since May 1st. So we're happy to be back with you. Tried to do an IG Live, obviously, earlier this week, but that was not meant to be here in the United Arab Emirates. But looks like you got a fresh lather after a little sunset pad session outside.
Yeah, it was nice. Me and Nixick just crushed some pads out there on the balcony right outside of the restaurant. And I got a nice new haircut today here in the hotel. Right. And dude, I'm like getting like patchy on the side here. I've always had a full beard, but the guy did a great job. Be honest, I probably screwed it up when I was trimming it, but he evened me out a little bit. So before anybody can comment on my beard on show night, right? Screw you. I'm already commenting on it.
Yeah, well, I actually was walking by the barbershop today, coincidentally, when Paulie was in the chair, so I got to see him getting that fade done. But if we didn't think highly enough of this W Hotel, Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, got a goddamn barbershop salon to get your haircut. So, yes, we will be taking questions for Paul Felder and for me throughout the course of the next 30 minutes or so. But I have a few things that I want to get to with Paulie, and some of this was discussed, obviously, in the media scrum yesterday. But all right, so you are training for a triathlon, potentially March 14th in Miami. Yeah. So you arranged, with a lot of help from some really nice people, as I understand it, to have a bike in your room here on Fight Island.
So I obviously, when I ride, I mostly ride indoors right now, especially on the East Coast. It's getting cold as hell. So I do most of it in my garage on Zwift, which is an online like gaming platform. You basically race everybody from around the world. It has all your stats. It's an amazing thing. If you haven't ever seen what Zwift is, you can run and cycle on it. But anyway, those guys, I just reached out to them about, are there any options for me? They had found a bike shop here in Abu Dhabi to deliver me a road bike and a trainer for the back wheel so that I could ride consistently while I was here. So there was a little bit of a mix-up. Is this what we're getting? I'm going to tell you about what happened.
Oh yeah.
So we get here to the hotel and it's not here yet, right? There's lots of restrictions with COVID to deliver stuff. So obviously I'm not too upset that it's not here right away because I understand this is a difficult task. But Zach Candido, our producer, is obviously out of quarantine before me and you are. And he starts sending us pictures. He's like, oh man, lots of bikes down here. And there's this beautiful road bike with a trainer on it in the gym. Wow. Okay. Simple mistake. They set it up in the gym instead of in my room because they didn't know what to do with it. Easy. Right. Call the front desk. Hey guys, my bike's down there. This is meant for me. And this hotel being the G's that they are and just accommodating to the utmost, start taking this bike apart to deliver it to my room because they've been told to, until I believe either one of the managers or the general manager stops them. And then a woman by the name of Jessica from here in the hotel calls me and she's like, so what's your bike look like and where is it from? Mind you, I have no idea yet. It's just a bike that they can afford to give me based on my measurements. And she's like, yeah, that's our GM's. He does triathlons. He's preparing for an Ironman. I was like, what are the chances that as I'm waiting for the last 2 times we were here, right? There's never been a bike down there with a trainer. So imagine this poor guy. This bike could be anywhere from a few $1,000s to $10,000. We don't know. And some people that don't know what they're doing are taking the chain off and pulling it apart and putting it on a cart. The guy, so if he ever sees this or hears about this, man, I apologize because I would be furious if somebody was just starting to rip apart my bike. So anyway. But now I do have a bike here. Jess hooked it up. The hotel hooked it up. Yas Cycles here in Abu Dhabi is a bike shop. Big shout out to them. They went out of their way. They went and got full PPE gear to deliver this bike, had to fill out this paperwork, prove their residency. And so those guys really, really, really helped me out.
and the treatment befitting one of the best lightweight fighters in the world, if I'm being honest. But I will say, man, and I know you're a beacon of humility, I'm sure Jessica called your room, and in some part it's like, hey, fucko, I know you're one of the best fighters in the world, but can you not have our staff break down the general manager's bike? But actually, it's probably my fault in some part, because I was the first one in that text thread who made the connection. As soon as Zach sent us that picture of the bike,
it's like,
and you didn't have your bike, I was like, dude, that's Paul's bike.
That's definitely my bike. Dude, I was like, called my mom. I called Christine. I'm like, oh, the bike's down in the gym. They're bringing it up just to mix up.
Right.
And then I was really distraught, right? Because I wanted it during quarantine. And again, nobody's fault. This is not an easy ask of anybody, but I was so upset that the bike wasn't here. I couldn't even focus on work. I was just kind of moping around the room. Like, all I wanted to do was ride my bike.
Right. Well, thankfully, the bike is here and the triathlon training continues. I know because you're not calling the fights for this first show on ABC, you do have a 3-hour ride tomorrow. But in terms of your fighting future, and there are some people chiming in here, Jack Lambert kind of wants to know what your perfect 3 fights would be if you could sort of plan your great exit. But while you kind of chew on that, right?
Yeah.
Is it fair of me to say that if you are offered a fight that piques your interest here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, that your focus would shift and the triathlon March 14th in Miami would not happen?
Yes, 100%. And I have a triathlon coach who is not only my triathlon coach anymore. I have brought him on to Team Felder, or whatever you want to call it, as a full-time coach year round. David Tilbury Davis, who also works with a lot of other pros and a lot of age groupers, and has just been doing this for a really, really long time, competed himself, played American football in Europe when he was younger. So the guy's just been an athlete and been around sports and sports science, and he breaks things down on a science level and a sports nutrition level that's just amazing. And so we've been talking a lot and doing a lot of research on how he can add to the team in an MMA way. Like, what can we do with these swim bike runs to enhance my cardio, not only for triathlon, obviously, because I'm not going to be off the bat a great triathlete. I'm not going to go win races. I never did this. I didn't do this since a child or anything like that.
Right.
I'm not a fantastic runner or swim. Definitely, I'm a horrible swimmer. But the bike is definitely something I've been enjoying a lot. And so now, we're just talking a lot about energy systems, right? And when is the right time to do threshold work? When is the time to be drooling because you're pushing so hard you can't get any oxygen, you're anaerobic? When is the best time to be aerobic and just do slow? And he's very specific about where my heart rate should be, how long I should keep them, how long and when I should go really hard. And we're trying to adopt that into my MMA training, in which case it means I'm not going and sparring 5-minute rounds, balls to the wall, trying to crack each other the whole time. Some days I'll do an hour and 45-minute run in the morning, take a big rest, eat a big meal, and then go do a bunch of technical pad work, because that's what that day is. The next day might be a hard MMA round with, Sean Brady, and we just crush each other. But that night I'll do an easy ride on the bike. So I'm always managing my systems and staying fresh. And you kind of see how it is. I'm much leaner. I'm much lighter now. I feel a lot faster. And so that was kind of the experiment with that last fight, right? We were like, well, let's see what happens in this RDA fight, having just done triathlon training with some pad work. And we realized, well, one of the benefits was I was fresh. I hadn't overdone the training.
Right,
I wasn't concussed. I wasn't sick of hitting pads because I hadn't done it that much. So when it was time to let my hands go, I felt excited about it.
Right. And it's so interesting. And you and I have talked off air a lot about the energy systems and all of that noise, for lack of a better way to put it. But it's amazing to think that without COVID-19, this stuff may not have happened in your life. I kind of feel like it was an eventuality that this endurance athlete in you, this triathlete, was going to emerge. But
maybe
I'm not
eventually
sure what happened.
Maybe eventually, probably more after retirement, when I was really sitting around going, okay, I'm 210 pounds. I'm drinking a case of beer every week. What the hell am I going to do with myself? Right? Like, what's going on here?
Right.
So
a week, that's not very many per night.
Yeah, that's not too bad, I guess. Right? I'm already but now I can. Right now, I can afford to have some beer and do stuff like that, or a little soda here and then after. I don't want my triathlon coach or Ian Larios to see me drinking soda. I shouldn't have just showed that.
I want to talk to Chef Larios about my Diet Pepsi right here if I could.
Yeah, he'd probably tell you not to drink it.
So, my body recognizes that as sugar and calories, even though it tells me that it is 0-calorie Diet Pepsi. But I digress. All right. Right here. So we're going to get a lot of lightweight clarity this weekend. And again, I appreciate all the questions coming in, and we'll try to do some rapid fire on the way out with some of those Colby Masvidal questions. But in terms of your fighting future, we're going to gain a lot of clarity in the lightweight division. Chandler, Hooker, Poirier, Conor, in theory, 2 of those guys take an L this weekend. You've got Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. You've got Nathan Diaz, who has emerged in the mix. So there are a lot of possibilities. But just as one example, there are a lot of people in this chat room who would like to see you rematch Dan Hooker. I know the Chandler fight has some appeal to you, maybe less so if he loses to Dan. But, the Ferguson fight could come around. If Dustin Poirier happens to lose to Conor, I could very much see them putting the 2 of you in a main event. So it's going to be a big fight, and I got to think it's going to be one of those names that I just dropped. What do you think about the immediate, if not long-term future?
Yeah, I'm with you on all that, right? These are all very real possibilities, especially in this division. Guys are going to lose this weekend. We've got 2 very top-level guys that are going to lose. And like you said, the Chandler fight did really, really excite me to be the debut. I wanted to be the guy to kind of introduce him. So there's a little less excitement about that once he's in, unless he does beat Dan Hooker and he takes that ranking, in which case he's still ahead of me probably. So, but he's made it pretty clear that, not that it matters what he thinks, but he obviously, if he wins against Dan, he wants to climb the ranks. We all want to climb the ranks. So we'll see, but I'll be watching and waiting. I don't have anything officially booked right now. That we're in talks. Brian Butler's talking to Sean Shelby. There's dates that are being mentioned and stuff, but again, nothing is set in stone. And just to clear the air here, guys, I wish that I was the one they're talking about when they talk about Nathan Diaz, but I'm not. I'm not the one that is being targeted for this fight. I know a lot of people were, thinking it was me, possibly Gaethje, but it's not me. So it's somebody else in this division. I don't know who, but God, I would love that fight, especially back down in 55. I think I match up well with Nate. I respect the hell out of him. He's a humongous draw. So I don't care. He could be ranked, 185th in the lightweight division, and I'm still taking that fight. So we'll see.
Well, the Diaz brothers represent the big money fights, if not big money, certainly big eyeballs. And what's interesting too about the Diaz brothers, you have to earn a fight with Nate, and you have earned it, right? And I think in Nate's eyes, you have earned it because he gave Masvidal that opportunity because George is a bad motherfucker that he feels is worthy of sharing the octagon with him. So if Nate is having a say in this matter, and he is, that it's going to be a fighter that everybody holds in high regard. Somebody. I
mean, how awesome would it be to have him in? I
know.
Those are the things you live for, right? In this sport, doing the 5-day notice fight, going to Auckland, New Zealand, fighting Dan Hooker, going and fighting Trinaldo in Brazil, fighting Stevie Ray in Scotland. Like, these are the things that we're going to look back on, some legendary shit. That's
right.
Of course, I want to be the champion. Of course, I want to make millions of dollars. But I also want to have these memories of, we're fighters, we're badasses, right? And a lot of guys kind of lose sight of that anymore in this sport. And they're just, you know what they are. I don't want to say it out loud. I don't want to excuse my French, but they're a bunch of pussies sometimes. Right? It's like, man up. You're a fist fighter, guys. Right. You're a fist fighter.
Right. So
you're a pugilist.
So in leading into the Rafael dos Anjos fight, you were very forthcoming about the fact that you were in some sort of cardiovascular shape. And a lot of the narrative leading into that fight was about the triathlete that was emerging in you. And I'm not suggesting that you should be keeping this stuff close to the vest, but I will just tell you, if I'm a fellow lightweight contender and I'm hearing Paul Felder talk about energy systems, and I know he's training for a triathlon, if I'm one of these guys fighting you,
you're going to look into it.
Well, I hate to fight the cardio guy for one, but I'm looking for a 3-round co-main event against Paul Felder. See, it's interesting, right? Because you want to tell the masses everything that's going on, but I don't know. I just feel like if I'm a fellow
stuff. And trust me, there's a lot going on in a lot of these workouts and a lot of the things that we're doing. I'm not going to start posting my my workouts, because these are things that this guy, David, is writing for me and all these other athletes. And man, I'm telling you, dude, these things are, he sends articles. This guy's doing his research, and him in combination with Ian talking about, what things they should be eating and when. I can't wait. And I think it's going to happen. We're waiting on, I think, possible visa stuff for Ian, who lives in Bali right now. But I'm bringing him into my house in Philly, or just outside of Philly, at the end of this month after Fight Island. Whether I have a fight or not, we're bringing him in. If something comes up, he stays. We go to Duke's, we go to Vegas, we go train. But no matter what, he's coming and living with me, Christine, and Aisling at the end of this month to cook for me full time as a personal chef. So
that's great. And he is one of the best human beings that I have met on this UFC 10-year road trip. And maybe he can babysit Aisling as well. He'd be up for that.
Bro, exactly.
I'm telling
you.
And
he loves my dog, so he can watch Cash the whole time. So,
but Joe Rogan and I are somewhat aligned in terms of the fact that we would maybe like to see a 10-minute first round, or we would like to see no clock. And I do believe in a fight to the death, so to speak, in a 1-round fight. If it's just a 20-minute fight, I don't think anybody's beating you, because I don't think anybody can finish you. And I just think that you were able to outlast people before over 5 rounds before you were doing all of this training. Cody just texted me. He said, how about for Felder Diaz? They do a 3-mile swim before the fight. There you go.
Lose. No, Cody, God, no, do the bike. We got to do the bike. You can't do the swim. I will drown. The fight will never happen, and I'm DQ'd. So if we could do, all right, we'll say half-mile swim. Half-mile swim. This is the Diaz fight, right? Hear me out. Half-mile swim, because I can manage that. 30-mile bike. Awful. And a 10K, and then we fight.
There you go. There you go.
And I smash him on that 10K. I guarantee it.
All right, a lot of questions coming in, and we are going to extend beyond 30 minutes, probably just
Triathalon fight.
That's good. Triathalon fight.
Dude, I'm down. Right. I'll do a exhibition triathlon fight.
I like it. All right. So in the nature of time, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on this weekend. And hopefully I didn't forget anything when it comes to Team Felder. I will have the first Team Felder t-shirt, by the way. I ordered it. It says fucking Anik on the back. And, I looked long and hard for Team Felder gear. We talked about launching some on the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel, but I got to get with Brian Butler before I have permission to do that. But I waited 2 years for my Team Felder t-shirt. It never came in the mail, so I just ordered one on my own. Anik hasn't mentioned a betting line yet, and that is why you stick around, because Max Holloway is a slight favorite against Calvin Kattar from -135 to -155 in most spots. A little bit closer than I expected, given that Max has been -200 for the bulk of his recent career. So because you're not working with us on ABC for this first one, you will be calling the fights on the 20th and the 23rd, obviously. So we can't get a prediction from you on any of the pay-per-view stuff. But you were forced to go on UFC Live on ESPN today and make a prediction for Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar. So for our audience, care to share who you think wins the main event here tomorrow night?
Yeah, I went pretty bold with this one, and I went with the underdog. I went with Calvin Kattar. I just think he's fresh. He's young. I like the team. I like his attitude. I like where his head's at. I liked his demeanor this whole week, and even seeing him, and he looked good at weigh-ins. Max, I don't know if you guys, and I have so much respect for Max. I love him as a fighter. I have nothing against him. I want to preface it with that. But he did an interview off the scale, and you get to just be reminded of kind of what he goes through to get down to that division. And I just think if Kattar can be smart and pick his shots and really land them on the chin, I think he can do really well in this fight. So I'm not saying go and bet the house on it. It's really close. It's a really, really close fight. And Max is a former champ who deserves to be the favorite in that fight. But
right.
I don't know, man. I like Calvin. I've liked him for a really, really long time. I love his striking, and I think this is going to be a striking fight.
It's amazing for me to hear the way you, and I talked to Dustin Poirier when he was watching the Saints game when we were in quarantine in Vegas. The way you guys talk about Kattar's boxing is incredible. And obviously, as a lifelong Bostonian, I'm so happy for the kid and the entire team and Tyson Chartier and the entire New England cartel. But I believe that what Max Holloway is doing, and I did want to get your thoughts on this, is going to extend his career. You know, he told me 2 years ago, Paul, and you might have heard this. Actually, you weren't a part of our fighter meeting. So he told me 2 years ago that not only does he want to eventually move up to 55 and try to make a run there, but he wants to fight at 70 and 85 before he retires from the UFC. Now, I think 85 might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew.
Yeah.
I think if he loses to Calvin Kattar, then he'll probably, with 3 straight losses, at least on paper, move up to 55 and try to make a run there. And I would certainly
100%
not put that past him. And I think that fight might have some appeal for you as well. In terms of him not sparring anymore, so this has been successive training camps now where he has not sparred. And it sounds trite to say the proof is in the pudding, but he looked outstanding against Volkanovski, having not sparred at all over those 8 weeks. So what were your thoughts when that sort of came down the pike this week that Max hasn't sparred now for a year plus?
So we were talking about the whole triathlon training and this switch up in mentality and how to approach training camps and things like that. And that's a big part of it. I do some sparring now, and I am back in the gym doing that, but I'm doing it with 1, maybe 2 guys that I trust to push me and have the skills to touch me, hit me, and not try to fucking KO me.
Right.
I put in so many gym wars where I would fight heavyweights. I would fight. It didn't matter. If you hit me, I was trying to take your fucking head off, right? And I had a lot of concussions. I got dropped a few times in training. When I used to go out to the ranch with Cowboy, man, we used to beat the crap out of each other. And it was just the way we thought you had to do it, right? You had to fight to get ready for a fight. And how many NFL teams play a game of football before they go play a game of football on Sunday? Nobody. Batting practice, baseball practice. Right. All right. Keep my eyes sharp. Throw the ball around. Do some sprints to first base. Watch tape. That's it. But for us, we obviously have to be in fantastic shape on top of the skill sets. So I think if you can keep your body responsive to all the things that it needs to do with limiting the amount of concussive shots that you need to take on that night, it's not going to have a bad effect on you. It's going to have the opposite. Those shots are not going to shut the lights off as quick. They're not going to hurt you as much because you're only taking them out of 2 months of training. You're taking all those hard shots on one night, then you rest, you recover, you treat your body right for the moments after that. You make sure that you're okay, and you move forward.
Well, that's the direction we're moving in, and it's very evolutionary. And you've seen in the NFL, too, they do less work with pads on than they used to. Yeah. It's a little bit of a slippery slope, if that's the right way to put it in the NFL, because, you got to be colliding if you're going to get ready for Sunday. And I think the really elite coaches are able to sort of taper that stuff off and still have their guys ready to go.
But just enough, right? You do need it. I agree. And that's where I think no sparring. Max might be kind of just being a little vague with that. I guarantee he's doing some sort of touching contact drills. Okay. He's doing something, right? But he's talking about, I'm not just getting in there, 16-ounce gloves, throwing on the headgear, Vaseline, knee pads, elbow pads. There's guys out there that are just, knocking their training partners out and then posting about it. Like, oh, I knocked my training partner out. I'm like, but then you just absolutely just got smoked in your fight.
Yeah, right.
Congrats. You don't get a $50,000 bonus for knocking out your bum ass training partner who came in there to help you out. Right.
And there still are elite fighters, obviously, in the UFC that are sparring 4 and 5 times a week, but those cases are now few and far between. One question coming in, by the way, on the production values on ABC. There will be a few extra bells and whistles on Saturday night, but I can't get into too many details there. Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, we've gotten a couple questions about that. It seems as though that's the direction in which the promotion is going. Fascinating stylistic matchup, but another guy who figures to try to ground game bread early and often, huh?
Oh, yeah. Colby does such a good job of using his striking to just get you, backing up, touch you up, get you annoyed, but he's going to be on him. He knows from their friendship and their time living together. I watched all those old YouTube videos of Masvidal and those guys going out with each other and then coming back to the apartment, the shitty apartment, Masvidal eating Oreos and then them wrestling in the apartment.
Right.
Colby knows he's got an advantage there. And I think that's why he really wants that fight so bad. But again, on fight night, things are always different. And Masvidal is a game player on game day. So I think that could bite him in the ass, right? Having that overconfidence. And I'm not saying that he can't go in there and just absolutely smash Masvidal, take him down, whatever. But you can't always rely on how things went in the gym training together. Now this guy's throwing knees. Now this guy's throwing elbows, and he doesn't have to be nice to you at all. He can try to really hurt you. So I think that's, man, I love that bad blood in that one, though. I think that's hopefully, though, I think the ultimate goal is that they beat the shit out of each other, and then they can be boys again. Because, man, you watch those old YouTube videos. It's sad to me to see that.
It is. And I live in South Florida with those guys, and I used to fly with them a lot, just circumstantially on the UFC road trips. Yeah. And I remember one flight from Miami to Dallas. I was sitting behind them and coach, right? And Masvidal was in the middle seat and Covington was on the aisle. I mean, they were basically holding hands, right? Yeah. Boys, Yeah. And I really do like both of them. And it's somewhat of a case of opposites attracting a little bit. But I go way back to 2009 Bellator season 1 with Gamebred, and I couldn't be happier that his bankroll is so goddamn fat right now. How about Bilal Muhammad chiming in here? He's like, why did the training partner have to be a bum?
Hold on, I never knocked you out in training. It's not like I'm talking about you. You end up piecing me up half the time anyway, you awkward mother effer.
And if you don't know, Bilal Muhammad has his own show with my twin brother Jason on the Anik and Florin podcast YouTube channel. Remember the show. You can actually watch last night's episode. No spoilers. It was an Eric Nixick win over James Krause on Remember the Show last night. And Bilal, if you really want to be put in a good mood, go watch my media scrum from yesterday where I put you over to the bosses to try to be our next commentator. So perhaps the check is in the mail for that.
God, I would love that. I would love working with Bilal. That would be fun.
Before we get
I would love to see Bilal remember the name Muhammad get an opportunity. I just think he has a lot.
There's the audio right there. Hey, before we get to Poirier McGregor, and I know I'm not going to get a prediction from you. Somebody did ask how competitive a sparring match would be between me and my twin brother. He's in better shape than me cardiovascularly, running 8 miles in like 62 minutes these days. So I don't know that would be good for me. I've also been hospitalized with 3 concussions in my life. So I will not be doing any charity, celebrity boxing or otherwise. All right. Poirier McGregor is now 8 days away. Dustin is here. Conor will likely be arriving, I think, on Sunday.
I think he's in the country, though.
He is in the United Arab Emirates. Yeah. It looks like he is in Dubai right now, and he will be arriving Sunday, likely with no shortage of fanfare. But I guess
and a new watch. I don't know if you saw that. He's got quite the watch that he just purchased. It's like a globe.
It's pretty incredible. It's pretty
snow globe on his wrist.
So, I'm not looking for any hard-hitting analysis here. You can give me enthusiasm if you want, but this fight is 8 days away. Prevailing wisdom seems to be that it is going to be far more competitive than the first meeting. The odds don't necessarily reflect that sentiment. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the fight and what Dustin can do, especially early on, in my opinion, to try to sort of neutralize a guy who is ubiquitously regarded as one of the top 3 or 4 strikers in the UFC at present?
I think where the challenge is Dustin wants to get in there and get revenge and more than anything in the world get this win. But he's got to be patient, man. If he runs into that left hammer, I can see him going down again. But if he can kick the legs, move around a little bit, I think the more he can get Conor to swing and not hit anything or just get the gas tank moving a little bit, he's got a better chance. I think he needs to utilize a little bit of wrestling. And I don't think it's going to be a case of, he's going to just take him down. Conor's takedown defense is far better than people give him credit for. And if you watch the Khabib fight, initially he's doing really well. He's doing all the right things. And now he does look to be in better shape, does look to be a lot stronger for this fight. And he does seem to be motivated. Again, we'll see how true all that is. And I think the other big thing is going to be the mentality and where is Dustin's head at. I think physically and fight IQ and capabilities, that's not the issue for him at all. I don't think.
Right.
But Conor has a tendency, like we've seen with anybody, man, he just has a tendency to live in there rent free a little bit, hang out. And after having a first round knockout already under the belt, he's just got to give him the,
Right.
You know what I already did here, touch those gloves.
Right.
And be himself. And but God, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a crazy week.
You know how highly I think of Dustin. I consider him a friend. I have called most of his UFC career. I haven't called that many of Conor McGregor's fights, but I just don't think he gets the overall recognition for his skills, because, you know, he's only competed twice in his best weight class in the UFC, right? This guy has 2 UFC lightweight appearances. And I have long said he cares deeply enough about his MMA legacy that eventually he's going to come back with some consistency. I don't love hearing this Pacquiao noise, if I'm being honest. I really want Conor to, you know, have an active 2021. But of course, if you lose to Poirier, maybe that results in him making a pivot. But in terms of the first minute of this fight, and maybe I'm just going to sound like a total fucking amateur here and total fan, but I didn't quite understand why Cowboy Cerrone didn't take a more measured approach early on. I'm not saying that Conor McGregor isn't super dangerous for 25 minutes or 8 minutes, but like, can't you get on a bike a little bit early and at least try to sort of get those first few minutes to rip off the clock? Is that too simplistic?
Here's where he's kind of, listen, I don't think he likes me very much, right? But I'm going to sit here and give him some real good praise anyway. He knows Cowboy. He studied what he was going to do. And I know Cowboy really well. And he's not a great starter. And he doesn't get on his bicycle. He's a great Muay Thai fighter. He's great everywhere. But he's not exactly a footwork, move around kind of guy. So Conor came out and launched the most murderous left hand at him that he could. And he knew, what was he going to do? Level change. He ran into that fucking hip. And as soon as they were clinched, instead of letting Cowboy start kneeing or just kind of jockeying for position, he just stayed on him. It was nasty with him from the get-go. Cowboy threw a kick. He threw one back. He made him engage with him nonstop early and get him overwhelmed, and he caught him. I mean, he knew what he was doing. When he entered that octagon, he knew, I'm throwing this punch to see what he does. And he read him from there, and he won. Now, Dustin, I expect Conor to come out and do something crazy. He always does. He comes out with some sort of different approach for every single fight. You can never watch Conor and be like, what's he going to do in those first 5 seconds? It could be a jump roundhouse kick. He'll come out and throw a spinning wheel kick. Cowboy throws a big straight left. You can't predict what's always unpredictable.
Right. That's you put that all beautifully. And I do believe that, and again, this is a generalization, but I think the 30-foot octagon compared to the 25-footer that you fought Rafael dos Anjos,
much better.
I think that, I just think it allows for the athletes and the strikers to just really take advantage of their footwork and their skills, you know. But I'm really curious to see how that plays out. Before we get on out of here, co-main event between Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker. I'm really curious, as I said yesterday at the media scrum, to sit down with Michael Chandler, because I'm not saying he doesn't have enthusiasm for this Dan Hooker fight, but I just think he had his sights set on either Ferguson or, you know, maybe trying to coach the Ultimate Fighter or Justin Gaethje. I don't know. I just don't get the sense that Dan Hooker was choice number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for Michael Chandler. But, you know, he needs to get in there and make his UFC debut. So I guess I'm curious just how you feel about that matchup and what kind of chance you give Chandler without giving a pick against your former victim. Oh, no, Dan Hooker's not your former victim.
Former opponent, we'll say.
Okay, sorry. See, my scorecard doesn't matter, obviously.
I think he's got a really good chance, actually. I like that fight. I think it's very, very interesting. And not only because
I could be wrong, by the way. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I could be totally wrong. And Chandler could sit down with us and say that he absolutely has a huge appetite for this fight. So.
No, he doesn't. He's been honest about that. You're right. He talked about it. I don't remember what interview he did, but I was watching it, and he's like, this isn't the best matchup for me. He admits that off the bat, that it's not stylistically, but he also could be saying that to kind of, you never really know. But I think if he can get his feints going and get Hooker to reveal what he wants to do when the shot comes, that'll really open up the ability for Michael to shoot in and get him down. And I think if it becomes a grappling match and Mike can get on top, I think it's a very, very, very winnable fight. We've seen Hooker have just a monster chin. So I don't necessarily see him getting KO'd. He's been hit with some nasty shots in his last couple of fights between Dustin Poirier just throwing some absolute bombs on him, and he still took every one of them. And he talked about how Hooker talked about how he didn't like his performance at all, even though that was fight of the year potentially. he didn't like how he played that fight. So we're going to see a much more calculated, dialed in Dan Hooker. And I think that's very dangerous for Chandler, because Hooker looked pretty damn good in that fight where he felt like he looked like crap. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But yeah, I think I don't think he's too excited. I think he's going to try to get this win so he can get the fights that he wanted.
All right, before I let you go in about 30 seconds, just in terms of the commentary, I'm coming up on 10 years in October. I will never forget when me and Dominic Cruz worked together for the first time, maybe Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or was it Virginia? Yeah. So, and I've seen a definite evolution in your style, because you are a funny motherfucker, okay? Like, you get me to legitimately laugh out loud. And is it fair to say that you're just more comfortable now 4 or 5 years in, and maybe letting it rip comedically a little bit more, because you're a funny prick?
Thank you for that. And normally when we work, my goal is to get you to laugh or spit your coffee all over, our microphones. Yeah, man, it's nerve-wracking, right? I'm in there with Jon Anik and Dominic Cruz and DC and Joe Rogan's, and you're a little overwhelmed the first year or so. So you just want to do it right? You want to talk about the fights. You want to really analyze things. But now that I've gotten my feet wet, I've been in there a ton of times in the short time that I've been doing this. I feel like I can be myself and have fun with you guys, and we know each other all so well now. The whole broadcast team, right? We're all boys. Like, we all really do truly get along and bust each other's chops. So yeah,
I thought you were money that night in the Steel City. This has nothing to do with.
I know, but when I listen back to that stuff, I'm like, oh god.
When I listen back to me and Ken Flo, January 20th, 2012 in Nashville, Tennessee, I sound like I'm 12 years old. Yeah. Now I'm probably polyps all over my vocals, and we'll see. Hopefully, we don't.
You're not a singer, John. You're not a singer. We don't need you to sing any show tunes.
Right.
You need that Anik voice. That's all.
That's right. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody indulging us for this latest episode of FNA. We can't promise that we're going to have a window to do this next week. I can't possibly describe how crazy next week is going to be for us. So probably not going to be able to churn out another one next week, but we appreciate everybody being here, especially live. If you did miss this live, do not worry. It'll be repurposed on the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel. And once we get back to the States, we'll try to start cranking these out on a more regular basis. But Paulie, have a good 3-hour bike ride in the morning, my man, and clean up the sweat for the W Hotel employees there.
I'm not going to make a mistake this time. I made major mistakes the first time before we go. I had no carbohydrates. I had no sodium in any of my waters. So I was just flushing water everywhere. I didn't put a towel over my handlebars or on the floor. So, I was amateur hour in here, John. It won't be tomorrow.
All right. Well, with that, for our producer, Cody Merrill and Paul Felder, Jon Anik saying so long for now. Thank you all for being here. We will see you tomorrow night live on ABC.